Right.
Like, that's it. Or maybe even better, I just...
We are the Parks and Rec Department talking to you about popular culture. So we're going to be using the Dramastic Perspective and Burkean criticism to analyze the persuasive aspects of public service as seen on television.
Now, what is dramaticism? Well, I'm glad you asked. Dramaticism is how people view their lives through drama. This is the label that Burke placed on it so that he could describe how people view their lives through drama.
We will demonstrate the oppressive nature by showing the government in the best light to keep people satisfied with the current way of life. Just like I'm gonna oppress this garbage can. My foot really hurts. Do I have to do this?
Yeah, you have to, Andy.
Alright. We're also covering topics such as the appeal these types of shows have for the consumers and how social commentary is sewed into our shows.
Whether we as consumers realize it or not, when we view media, we are being persuaded to think in a certain way.
So hot out here, guys. It's turning my cologne into smellopotamus. Rolling. So, mockumentaries are so persuasive because of the comedy that they have in them that reflects human social behavior through that comedy.
We chose to analyze Parks and Rec because of its perspective on the government, persuasive humor, and mockumentary style throughout the show.
Hey Andy, how is Parks and Rec as a mockumentary appealing and persuasive?
It's like Burkes Theory.
I don't know who that is.
One of the things I love most about Kenneth Burke is that he strives to understand how people justify their behavior, and especially unsocially acceptable behavior. Burke has been the inspiration for many researchers and for papers and, even for me. Yeah, I love how he applies his theory to how emotions are implicated in individuals. I also love the Pentad Theory. There's 5 steps. It's so organized. I love that. It's like, the points of entry for dramatic ethics. Super cool. Oh, you want me to list them off? Well, I can totally do that. So the 5 steps, that's 10. The 5 steps for the Pentad Theory, I made up an acronym, AASPM. So it's ACT, or your rule-breaking behavior. A, so agency, which is the tools that we use to accomplish that act. The S is scene, or the location of where the situation is. The P is for purpose, the explanation offered for doing the act. And then the 5th one is the motive, so it's justification for behavior.
Andy, wake up! I gotta teach you about hegemony. So when we talk about the oppression of people to keep people satisfied, we're not really talking about a paradoxical oxymoron, though that would make a sick rap album. We're talking about hegemony. And no, that's not about hegemony, that money that I used to keep my bling on. But this is hegemony, which Dan McClure defines as a process by which a social order remains stable by generating consent to its parameters through the production of distribution of ideological texts that define social reality for the majority of people. And we need this in English, guys. English, please. So, what it really means is that the content is created to uphold and maintain culture or the status quo. Joseph Zampetti said it more simply, calling it the dominant culture of political order. So when you're watching your favorite TV shows, you're reinforcing cultural norms. The reason we call this happy oppression is because hegemony, it relies on universal agreements. Celeste Condit wrote that it is the result of concordance rather than organizations and people with power like governments or institutions or media that are deliberately trying to make messages and trying to control culture. Hegemony is a result of the most heard voices or viewpoints. She said, the hegemonic perspective assumes that there must be something universal or general in any successful claim in order for a wide variety of groups to identify with it. So it's easier to watch TV shows rather than that political debate because they're not doing that old man thing and it doesn't show, the boring stuff. Your TV shows have comedy in them. So you are also learning about culture with your comedy. They make statements or representations about the culture that people generally agree with. So they perpetuate that current culture. You are oppressed into maintaining the current norm and you're fine with it. Now this doesn't mean you're a bad thing or that you need to change. Your culture is just as culture does. It just means that when something new comes and goes against your grain, you need to look at it and see how it provides new social commentary against your hegemonic norms.
Andy, we gotta study for your pop culture test.
No, I don't want to.
Come on.
Fine.
All right, here we go. First one, who developed ELM, or the elaboration likelihood model?
Easy. Tom Petty and John Calipari.
No, that's a singer and a basketball player.
Oh, right.
It's Richard Petty and John Capascibo.
That was close enough.
All right, here we go. How does media persuade?
Well, the elaboration likelihood model assumes that consumers interpret persuasive messages by applying central and peripheral routes in a particular environment. And according to Petty and Priester, to what extent are media persuasion attempts effective or the success of media campaigns depends in part on A, whether the transmitted communications are effective in changing the attitudes of the recipients in the desired direction, and B, whether these modified attitudes in turn influence people's behaviors.
Okay, that was actually really great. So I guess we can move on to the next one. If you chose a mockumentary as a form of media to examine persuasion, how are they successful in doing so?
Mockumentaries conduct important and meaningful critique of society and the media by finding humor in how music, sound, and silence can be powerful means capable of affecting our emotions and our perception of reality. It actually manages to make them take them seriously.
Wow, that was really great. Okay, here's our last one. Here we go. Can media or TV shows make any organization look like the good guy and be persuasive?
Yes. Persuaders can blend social influence with entertainment, such as when a recurring television soap opera is used to convey information about a disease prevention or population control. So if TV can do it with soap operas, it can sure do it with a show about how local government can help people.
Yes!
From the research of Oliver and Rainey, eudaimonic and hedonic materials are described as being viewed for pleasure, which is hedonic, and eudaimonic, which is for intellectualism. And as we will see, Parks and Rec fulfills both of these.
The passage of time is different within the TV show Parks and Rec. Producers want to get the story to move along, and so they use time in a way that benefits them. An example of this is how Leslie receives promotions. Often it is from headhunters who are asking her to join their team. This gives watchers an inflated perspective of how promotions work within the government.
Mockumentaries are persuasive. Mockumentaries are popular and persuasive today by their unique humor, which through their method of comedy also provides commentary on human social behavior. Because mockumentaries are mocking a documentary, they feel real, thus making it easier for us to relate to the experiences we see on the show. When we relate to certain characters, we become more persuaded to their point of view and adopt their point of view in some aspects of our own lives. Mockumentaries conduct an important and meaningful critique of society and media by finding humor in how music, sound, and silence can affect our emotions and perception of reality. It actually manages to take them seriously, and this can change our behavior.
Because the events are portrayed as dramatic or nonsensical, and they're being performed every minute,
I want it on! That's the whole point. I put the makeup on after I went into labor.
we are drawn to the drama of these acts. We want to see their resolution. This is what Burke calls mystery, or something that is differentiating or alienating, and we want to see what happens.
So the purpose of Pentad is to keep people satisfied and frame the government in a positive light. Parks and Rec, as a narrative, strives to present their public service individuals as the good guys, that they are working for the greater good of their community, with their only goals and intentions being to provide the community with the best experience possible. This bias is called the status quo bias, and can be seen as government oppression. So although being a fiction show, people often believe the world is represented by what they see on TV. People will then believe that all city government is like what they see in Parks and Rec, and know without any individual or personal motivations or gains, just to promote the greater good, thereby being happier with what their real government is doing because of how government is framed on TV.
For an example of a Pentad analysis, we want to take a close look at the graduation speech that Leslie gives in the last episode of season 7.
We do it because we get the chance to work hard at work worth doing.
The agent is Governor Leslie Knope at the agency, which is the podium of her stage. The scene is the graduation, but the purpose is what we really want to take a look at. Her purpose here, as she clearly states, is to persuade the college listeners that public service is a work worth doing. This extends to the audience that listens to the message, us the viewers.
The swing is fixed.
Well, there you have it, sir. Another problem solved by the hard work of dedicated public servants.
Okay, great. Bye.
Yeah, that's about right.
The next Pentad analysis that we want to take a look at is what they do the entire episode of the final season, which is fixing a swing. The agents are the Parks and Rec department, and the agency is teamwork, time, and dedication that they spend trying to get this thing going together. The last scene takes place in the park, where we see the purpose happening and what we are trying to be persuaded of as viewers, which is workers in the government give hard work and don't get thanked properly. People in the community expect the government to take care of them in this way. We don't care about the efforts of the people who create and solve the problems. We just care about the end result.
Notice how they don't say, thank you, they say, okay, great, and move on.
Parks and Rec persuades us to think our local government is helpful. So there's two things that Leslie Knope has said. And her quotes, the first one is, another problem solved by the hard work of dedicated public servants. And the second quote she said is, we get a chance to work hard at work worth doing. These quotes use strong language to persuade us that local government, 1, does important work, 2, works hard at it, and 3, that government workers are dedicated public servants. And that this show has even affected me in my own personal life. Parks and Rec has persuaded me that local government is helpful. Because I watched the show and became a fan of it, I actually got an opportunity to intern for a local city council. And I took it and had a great experience with it, and the whole reason I was open to it is because this show had persuaded my mind to think that local government is helpful and can change. Tom, you stuck in there? Well, I'll answer your cultural question. It's that mockumentaries are persuasive, and Parks and Rec persuades us to think that local government is helpful. You okay, buddy? Mockumentaries are popular and persuasive today by their unique humor.
One way the media persuades us is through oppressive nature. They persuade us to be okay with the status quo of the government. That is why people are typically okay to allow the government to continue to do what they've always been doing and enact more legislation.
The way the government is framed affects our perspective of it. Specifically, they are persuading us to believe the government is the good guys, or that they're optimistic.
Mockumentaries are appealing for both pleasure and intellectual learning about through the way they portray drama and real life.
And whether we as consumers realize it or not, when we consume media, we are being persuaded to think in a certain way.
Mockumentaries are persuasive, and Parks and Rec persuades us to think our local government is helpful.
The end!